Get expertise from the air suspension specialists, keeping you on the road and in top condition. Today, we're installing a LoadLifter 5000 Ultimate Kit on a 2017 Ford F350. Installation will take about 2 hours using common mechanics tools. Remember, this overview doesn't replace your installation manual. Grab yours out of the box and let's get started. Raise the truck with a floor jack and support the frame with jack stands, making room for the air spring assembly. For filming purposes, we're using a drive-on vehicle hoist. Start your installation by preparing the vehicle. Unbolt and remove the jounce bumper and 2 clip-in studs. Install the universal nuts into the frame rail, being sure to line up the holes in the frame with the threads on the nuts. Then, insert carriage bolts into the upper bracket and install onto the frame using button head screws. Position the bracket so the side with the slot is facing inboard and the elongated hole is facing forward. Set a roll plate on top of the air spring. Install the swivel fitting so that it's finger tight. Then use a wrench to tighten it an additional 1.5 turns. Set the upper bracket on top of the roll plate and attach using the provided hardware. Be sure to create a left and right-hand side assembly by assembling the 2 air springs using the opposite holes on the upper brackets. Flip the assembly and set a roll plate on the bottom of the air spring. Insert 2 carriage bolts through the square holes on the lower bracket main plate. Set the assembly onto the air spring and attach with the provided screws. Use a carriage bolt to attach the lower bracket cup to the lower bracket main plate on both assemblies, top with flat washers and nylon lock nuts. Snug the bolt, but leave the assembly loose in its position at this time. Position the air spring assembly over the jounce bumper strike plate. The lower bracket cup should rest on the jounce bumper strike plate. Push the lower bracket so that it is even with the lead spring stack. Install the U-bolt around the jounce bumper strike plate and through the topmost holes in the lower bracket main plate. Cap with flat washers and nylon lock nuts. Tighten so that the assembly is flat against the stock U-bolts. Set the lower clamp bars over the carriage bolts and attach with flat washers and nylon lock nuts. Torque this hardware, then the previously snugged hardware. On vehicles with an anti-roll bar, it may be necessary to trim the rear carriage bolt so that it does not contact the anti-roll bar. Snug the nut that holds the lower bracket to the lower bracket cup. Tie off the ABS lines with zip ties to keep them away from the carriage bolts. Make sure the 90-degree fittings are pointing toward the center of the vehicle. Align the carriage bolts from the upper bracket with the frame bracket. Cap the carriage bolts with flat washers and nylon lock nuts. Torque to complete installation. Before routing air lines to the air springs, note the available length and pick a convenient inflation valve drilling location. We'll use the bumper as our drilling location, but you could also use the license plate recess, wheel well flanges, or under the gas cap access door. Place a nut and star washer on the inflation valve and push it through the previously drilled hole. Use a rubber washer, flat washer, and nut to secure it in place. Then twist on the valve cap. Before cutting your air line, remember to never cut from the side. You'll leave a jagged edge and ruin the hose. Instead, use a hose cutter or a sharp razor blade to get a clean cut. Now, route the longest airline path first. Secure it along the frame using the provided zip ties. Once routed, measure an extra 12 inches, then cut the airline. Following the same guidelines, route, secure, and cut the second airline. On the passenger's side, slip the hose protector over the end of the airline. Now insert both lines into their push-to-connect fitting and push the hose protector up against it. Install the provided heat shield on the exhaust pipe which passes near the passenger side air spring. Bend the tabs to provide a dead air space between the exhaust pipe and the heat shield. Attach the heat shield to the exhaust pipe using the provided clamps. Bend the heat shield for maximum clearance to the air spring. To make sure your airlift kit is airtight, inflate the system to 30 psi and spray a soap solution on all connections and valves while checking for exiting air bubbles. That does it! Remember, you can find more information about all of our products at airliftcompany.com, and our knowledgeable customer service team is always just a phone call away. Thanks for joining us in the Airlift Workshop.